I'm Donna Hutchinson. Welcome back to Getting Started Module 1. We're in part 2 now, where we're looking at helping you find a business name. And I hope you finished the exercise from part 1, which was creating a vision of your business. And if you haven't, please go back and do that. But right now we're focusing on getting you the right business name. Now for some of you, you might already have your name, so you might want to skip this section and go to next week. But if you don't have a name and you're struggling and you can't figure out what to do, then you're in the right place, because today we're going to figure that out. So finding your business name, that can be very challenging, and I've coached many trainers through this process, and we're going to do this in a step-by-step. So how we're going to do it is just by good old brainstorming. And brainstorming is just coming up with a lot of really good ideas and some not so good, and just going through the process of elimination. But did you know that there was an actual technique to brainstorming? Yeah, there is. Brainstorming actually has 3 parts to it. The first part is things that you know from your experiences. So for example, if I asked you to come up with a name for a running program, you're probably going to draw on other program names that you've heard about or read about. In the second third of brainstorming, that's where things get a little bit more, shall we say, challenging, where you're trying to come up with some unique names, and it's difficult. You may not actually have as many names to choose from, and you might find the process a little bit harder to go through. But in the last third of brainstorming, when you think you're completely tapped out, when you're absolutely sure you can't think of anything else and you're done figuring out names, is actually where you're the most creative. So the process really has you going through 3 stages. Coming up with names, which I'm sure you already have. I'm pretty sure you have a list of things that you have already put down and you're sort of not really sure about, and maybe there's a couple that you're tossing out. And then it got a little harder. But if you didn't go to the last stage where you're being creative, even silly, and even with names that you would probably never dream of using, you still need to go there, because that diamond, that gem of a name, is just waiting for you at the end of that brainstorming technique. Now, I'm going to give you some additional tips to brainstorming. One is this: never edit. So when you come up with a name, don't worry about going, it's not so good, or no, I don't really like it. Do not edit anything. And if you're typing it on the computer, don't worry about the spelling mistakes. What you want to do is you want to get yourself into a creative flow state where different names, different combinations are just coming to you without thinking if they're good, if they're bad, and how they will seem. So that's the brainstorming activity. And if you haven't gone through that yet to come up with your name, that's step number 1. I want you to take the time and go through the brainstorming activity, and then once you do, and you'll have a list, many lists maybe, then you can go and edit. So once the brainstorming is done, you can go and edit. But leave it for a day or so, because you come back to it with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. So a couple of days later, go back to that list and then start looking at editing, picking out the good, the bad, putting things together. Once you have narrowed it down to maybe 3 to 5 names that you really like, then you can do the third step, which is go out and show these names to people. And when you show people the names, or you're emailing the names, don't put any commentary. Don't tell them what your favorite is. Don't tell them when you're leaning for. Mix up the order so that's not being sent in the same order, because people will presume that your first, second, and third in that list will be what you prefer. So mix it up a little bit and listen to their reactions. Because I'll tell you, if they can't remember your name, that's not a good name to choose. You want a name that's going to be kind of sticky, one that people will remember. So if it's too long, over 10 words long, nobody's going to remember that unless it's a catchy phrase. Okay? So here's the process for finding that name, your identity to your business. 1 is go through the steps of brainstorming. Remember to push through till it hurts, till you think you can't come up with something else, and then keep pushing, because that gem is right there. Then come back to that list a couple of days later with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. Narrow down your choices to 3 to 5 if you can, and then go out and show it to people and listen to their comments, listen to what they say. The name has to make sense. Okay, so that's your task for this week, and there is more information in the book on the how-to guide to starting your own personal training business. It gives a few more tips on how to go through that process. So, and I'll see you for the third and final section in Module 1, which is once we narrow down that name, now we've got to go out and do a name search. So we'll see you then.